from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Okay, let's start with the intermediate class devotees. Devansh Mataji.
Yes, Rosie. Um, Anyad, Anyad Evahur Avid. Sorry, just a second, Rosie. My actually screen is a bit. Anyad Evahur Vidyaya. Nyad Ahur Avidyaya. Iti Shushrumadhirana. Yenastad Vichachakshire. Anyad Evahur Vidyaya. Nyad Ahur Avidyaya. Iti Shushrumadhirana. Yenastadvichachakshire. Anyad evahur vidyaya. Nyad ahur avidyaya. Iti Shushrumadhirana. Yenastadvichachakshire. The wise have explained that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Okay, is there anyone else from the intermediate class? I think, yeah, do not see. I think hopefully they will join as we go. Uh, okay, anyone else would like to actually join the recitation? You're more than welcome. Otherwise, we'll continue with the discussion on the purport where we left at the last time. Okay. Okay. So last week, I think we spent time on actually understanding the 18 points here that Srila Prabhupada has summarized from Bhagavad Gita verse, chapter 13, verse 8 to 12. So basically, where Krishna is talking about what knowledge constitute, right? So this is a summary of that actually uh, verse and purport given by Srila Prabhupada there. So they're very important 18 points actually, and we went through each one of them and we discussed that in order to actually understand it properly. So we will start actually from I think where we stopped last time. Yeah, pretty much there. Actually, that these 18 items combine to form a gradual process by which knowledge can be developed. So that's where we stopped. We will start from that point onwards. Devansh Mataji would like to read today.
Yes, Rosie.
Okay. Maybe I'll just zoom in so easier. Okay.
Yes. Uh, from these 18 items, right? Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji. Yeah.
Yeah. These 18 items combine to form a gradual process by which real knowledge can be developed. Except for these, all other methods are considered to be in the category of nescience. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, a great acharya, maintained that all forms of material knowledge are merely external features of the illusory energy, and that by culturing them, one becomes no better than an ass. The same principle is found here in Isopanishad. By advancement of material knowledge, modern man is simply being converted into an ass. Some materialistic politicians, in spiritual guise, decry the present system of civilization as satanic. But unfortunately, they do not care about the culture of knowledge, of real knowledge, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Thus, they cannot change the satanic situation. Should I continue reading, Prabhuji?
No, that's fine, Mataji. Thank you. So in this paragraph, so Srila Prabhupada says that these 18 items, right? This is from the Bhagavad Gita, 18 points that summarize. So Krishna says this actually, all these 18 points and whatever is discussed in chapter 13. Uh, we went through that last week, and all these points actually constitute actual knowledge, vidya. And anything apart from this, whatever there exists, is called pretty much a science. It's not actually the knowledge. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is a great acharya. He maintained that all form of material knowledge are merely external feature of illusory energy, and that by culturing them, one become no better than an ass. So here, what is actually said here is that the all kind of material knowledge, so any knowledge that do not lead to Krishna or Krishna consciousness is considered to be a material knowledge, right? We actually we had this point actually covered when we studied the nectar of instruction, because I think we were discussing the point. It was nectar of instruction, verse 2. Uh, Prajalp, I think, So in that, under that actually discussion, we said that all kind of actually the novels and journals and newspapers, that we currently see in a material world, it's also actually reading them is also Prajalp, waste of time, pretty much. And that knowledge is not real knowledge because that does not lead one to Krishna, right? So that actually it do not help one to progress towards becoming a Krishna conscious. So here is a similar point. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that this material knowledge. So when we say material knowledge, we go to the actually school, colleges, universities, and we actually obtain various degrees, and we spend a lot of time and effort actually studying different subject matters to gain, the actually these qualifications. However, uh, all this is just material knowledge, and the objective of this knowledge is actually pretty much actually teach someone or somehow make them fit in this actually social system, whereby actually they can use this knowledge to make money. So actually in the university and colleges there is means we have seen that there is they do not teach students how actually they do not teach them that actual what is their actual nature. That's what we learn here, that we are not this body, we are spirit soul, and our only business is to serve Krishna. So these spiritual topics are actually not taught in today's actually educational, so-called advanced educational system. So this all this material knowledge is referred here as a niscience, it's avidya. And by culturing this, one become no better than an ass. So this quite actually a strong statement, because for especially materialistic people, it's very hard to accept such statements, because what does that actually implies is by studying all these material degrees, we don't really become anything better than us. So we are actually studying all this material knowledge just actually somehow we fit in this system. Someone become accountant, someone become a doctor, someone become engineer, someone become IT person. But where does that lead? Actually, it just gives you a way to make living, earn the actually money, so you can survive in this material world. But actually, that's what we think, or materialistic people think, that they are the doers. They think that they are working very hard, they are earning money, and that's how they are actually being sustained. But when we study Bhagavad Gita, then we realize that actual maintainer is Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is maintaining all the living entities. So if we keep apart the human, then you can see, all the birds and beasts and insects. They don't go to any actually colleges or big universities. Do not acquire any degrees, but their life is going on. Food is being provided, shelter is there, depending on actually what kind of body they receive. Their life is actually maintained and it goes on. So Srila Prabhupada always make this point that if Krishna is actually providing food, to all the birds and beasts. Of course, he has made arrangement for human as well. So we do not really have to work like a donkey just to actually make a living. You will be maintained as per Krishna's plan, as per your past karmas. So by just actually running behind or actually culturing this material knowledge, we do not really become advanced, and it does not lead to actually Krishna consciousness. You're not actually going to progress in the actually on a spiritual platform. So that is point here. And the last point, he says that some materialistic politician in spiritual guise decry the present system of civilization is satanic, right? But unfortunately, they do not care about culture of real knowledge, as described in Bhagavad Gita. Thus, they cannot change this satanic situation. So yes, we see that actually, there are always politicians, and they actually there are always a hidden agenda. If that actually political person is not honest enough, so he may use this actually spiritual knowledge as a guise, and he may say this present civilization is so degraded, it's very satanic and blah blah blah. But objective is not to actually do something about it and try to actually implement this Bhagavad Gita knowledge and try to actually change the society, but to actually uh, agenda is to gain maybe the votes or whatever they're looking for. So we see that very often. That's actually what happens. There are so many elections are being actually they actually yeah, there's a they own the election based on the religious agenda and so on. So these things always happen in the material world. No surprise. Okay. uh, let's go to the next paragraph.
In the modern society, even a boy thinks himself self sufficient and pays no respect to elderly men. Due to the wrong type of education being imparted in our universities, boys all over the world are giving their elders headaches. Thus, Sri Isopanishad very strongly warns that the culture of nescience is different from that of knowledge. The universities are, so to speak, centers of nescience only. Consequently, scientists are busy discovering lethal weapons to wipe out the existence of other countries. University students today are not given instructions in the regulative principles of brahmacharya, celibate student life, nor do they have any faith in any scriptural injunctions. Religious principles are taught for the sake of name and fame only, and not for the sake of practical action. Thus, there is animosity, not only in social and political fields, but in the field of religion as well.
Okay. Yes. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying that in today's modern society, that actually the boys and girls, especially the young people, actually they think they are self-sufficient and they do not pay respect to the elderly men. So yeah, we see that nowadays, it's happening everywhere, not just India, especially when you come to the actually Western countries. So if you go and actually study in the universities, then there is a culture shock. You may have experienced it because especially in India, at least, there is a system that normally students they respect the teachers, right? So as soon as they enter the class, they pay their due respect, maybe stand up. They call them sir or whatever. But in the Western countries, if you see, actually, I was also surprised because I came here and done my postgraduate studies, and I was uh, initially it was very hard for me to accept, because everyone actually enters in the class and actually professor is actually teaching, but students are actually having coffees, having their breakfast. Anybody comes at any time, there is no restriction, and they call teacher by his name, so uh, so they pretty much actually teach them on the same level. So that's the culture here. Means actually it's not something very astonishing for them. So that's how it is here. Even I seen the students actually, they actually carrying the books with them. So anywhere they go, just they put the books down and they sit on the books and all that. So it was very surprising for me because actually I came from India, and we have been taught to respect, any books is a source of knowledge. So we worship. So there is definitely cultural differences, you can see. So India is still, much better than Western countries in that respect. But Westernization is spreading very fast in India as well. So in the olden days, you actually teachers are allowed to actually discipline children, even they are allowed to actually beat children in the schools to correct them. But nowadays, I'm not sure in India actually if that still happens, but it definitely happened when I was in school. Uh, but in actually Western countries, in New Zealand, actually there is a anti-slapping law. So if you slap anyone, actually, there is a legal action can be taken against you. So yeah, it means in actually they did it for a reason. I know actually some people abuse children. Yes, we can understand that, but and now this is applicable to even parents. So you have to think twice before you actually try to discipline your children. So these things are there. There's good and bad sides to each. All of these laws, but definitely the today's young generation, if you see, especially in the Western countries, they do not actually pay respect to the elders. But in the olden days, I have seen actually, maybe another maybe 50 years back, actually, my father, he used to respect their parents very much. When they are very old, as soon as he enters, everybody actually stand up and give the seat and all that. But we do not see that happens nowadays. So definitely our culture is degrading, unless you are in a very well cultured family where you have been taught all this principle of actually Vedic system. So you are well off. So we are fortunate enough that we can come in touch of Srila Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. So Amrish Prabhu actually taught us all these actually subject matters relating to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and we understand the value of a Vedic system. Otherwise, unless you study these actually books, given by Srila Prabhupada, you would not understand the value of Vedic system. So I'm pretty sure if I didn't study this, I'm actually definitely end up thinking that Western actually culture is better than Indian culture because there is so much freedom. You don't really have to do so many things just for sake of respecting others and all that. But yeah, we understand the value of that now because yeah, one day you will also get old and you will be treated even the same similar way or maybe even worse because things will get uh, actually become worse day by day. So that one point is there, and Srila Prabhupada also mentioned here the universities are they become the center of science only. So yes, all that knowledge being taught. So there is no spiritual knowledge that leads one to the actually become a god conscious. There are very maybe there are some schools around actually what they call some of them Christian school, Catholic schools and all that, so they teach some religious aspect. Even in India we have many schools. We see that actually there are certain spiritual subjects are being taught, but Srila Prabhupada say they are also being taught just for the what is said here, name and fame only, which is very true. Because even when I was growing up, I have seen, actually some of my family members they went and study in such actually religious schools, but they have been taught all the prayers and everything. But when they actually come out, there is no any real impact. They just they memorize, they recite, and they forget about it. There is no implementation. But here, what Srila Prabhupada taught us is actually we learn and we practically implement it, which is very, very important. So unless you implement it, there is no value to that knowledge. That actually the basic principles, regulatory principle of brahmacharya, celibate student life, they are very, very important. When you are actually going through the schooling system. But that is all lost nowadays. Maybe there may be some institution in India or even now, even in the ISKCON, there are actually gurukuls. But you have to be very, very careful. You have to actually check everything before you actually decide to send your children to these gurukuls to make sure that actually you are getting the same knowledge what you're expecting. Okay, nationalism. Let's go to the next paragraph.
Nationalism has developed in different parts of the world due to the cultivation of machines by the gentle people. No one considers that this tiny earth is just a lump of matter floating in immeasurable space. along with many other lumps. In comparison to the vastness of space, these material humps are like dust particles in the air. Because God has kindly made these lumps of matter complete in themselves, they are perfectly equipped with all necessities for floating in space. The drivers of our spaceship may be very proud of their achievements, but they do not consider the supreme driver of the greater, more gigantic spaceships called planets.
Yes. So here, the first point is nationalism. So we see that everywhere. Actually, everyone is proud of their country, and people do. There are so many people. They are very much actually. They invest a lot of time. Try to serve their nations. So this is nothing new. We have seen that even when Srila Prabhupada was there, actually during the before the actually India got the freedom from the British Empire. So there is a pretty much big nationalist movement, what we call freedom struggle or a movement, what we called it at the time. It was existing and led by Gandhi, right? So actually, I read the letter written by Srila Prabhupada to the Mahatma Gandhi, and where it mentioned that he wrote to him many times, but he never got a reply because their secretaries actually they mentioned that Mr. Gandhi is very busy, that he will not get time to read any letters or any magazines. So still, there is a final letter where Srila Prabhupada warned Mahatma Gandhi that actually he has to actually immediately retire from the active politics and actually spend time studying Bhagavad Gita and preaching the Bhagavad Gita. So that is a recommendation, actually made by Srila Prabhupada at that time, and he warned if he does not do that, he will meet the death in the same way that other, the leaders have made, and that actually happened, you know. So after he sent the letter, and after I don't know what is the timeline, but we all know that actually Mahatma Gandhi was shot, right? And even Srila Prabhupada mentioned in that letter that Mahatma Gandhi, he was very passionate and he invested all his efforts, in a freedom struggle. And it was really, means he was a great person, and he did a lot of experimentation with the truth. So even his own biography is called My Experiments with Truth. But this Srila Prabhupada pointed up very good point where he said that yes, he did respect what he did, and actually his efforts actually made him a actually greater person. He actually elevated himself on a higher platform. He said that, but however, his experimentation with the truth is actually experimentation with the relative truth, not the absolute truth. And he actually requested him that actually he should now spend, at least take a retirement for a month and discuss on the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita and try to understand what the actually absolute truth is, because that was a real need for the time. Even before Srila Prabhupada actually met his Guru Maharaj, he was also influenced by Mahatma Gandhi's movement. He wanted to join the freedom struggle. But after he met his Gurudev, and he got actually, he was given instruction, and that's where he realized that even this actually movement to get actually freedom from actually British is not going to actually lead to the permanent happiness, because still the actual freedom is to get the freedom from birth, date, old age, and disease. It is all external. It's actually getting a freedom from British Empire, because you will be again enslaved to someone. So there's no point. Even Gandhiji actually he spent a lot of time preaching ahimsa. Actually, he wanted all the religions, to stay with each other, in unity. But actually, at the end, when they got a freedom, what happened? Actually, India got divided. In the Hindu-Muslim, Pakistan was created. His own actually followers actually become his enemies. And actually, at the end, that he preached ahimsa all his life. However, when they got a freedom, there is a lot of himsa, right? So a lot of people got killed during the partition. So all these points were actually mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in that letter. So you can see that actually initially Srila Prabhupada was also influenced by this freedom struggle. He wanted to join the movement, but when he actually realized the truth, actually after he met his Guru Maharaj, then he realized that there is actual need to actually study spiritual knowledge and try to actually get one free from this actually material body. So yes, nationalism is there, and uh, yeah, some people actually spend a lot of time actually, and we also feel proud. But um, the real point is that uh, the planet that we live in here is mentioned that is nothing but a speck of dust in a actually is ethereal space. So I remember actually Amrish Prabhu shared this point that where I think Srila Prabhupada uh, actually he mentioned to his one of his devotee that was in America that he said that in the spiritual world, and actually the planet we they live in. So we live in maybe in city, small city in some country, and there are many small cities, big cities that form a country. There are many countries, there are many contents, and that becomes the whole earthly planet. But the small planet is just a very small part of a actually solar system, and this one solar system is a part of big galaxy. There are billions of maybe millions of planets, and there are millions of actually universes or multiverses, exist in this actually material creation. So this is we're just talking still about the material creation. Then there is actually spiritual world, which is actually about 75% of a total creation. Material creation is only 25. So if somebody look at this actually earthly planet or the our planet Earth from a spiritual sky or from a spiritual planet, maybe Vaikuntha, it will just look like a speck of dust, floating in a sky. So it's so minute, and still on this minute planet, somewhere in a minute maybe country, we exist in some small city, and still we are very much proud of being actually citizen of a certain country, nationalism or whatever socialism. So we have to understand this. Actually, everything is ultimately owned and actually owned by actually Lord Krishna. We studied this Ishavasam principle. So everything is owned by the Lord, and we have been given quota to lead our life here. But what we do is actually we try to actually dominate, even this actually we exist on this planet. The people, or maybe they have created different nations, they have actually created the boundaries within the nations, and they always fight with each other for that actually piece of land. And we see that everywhere, right? It's not actually surprise. There's so many who are currently being fought for the similar reasons. So that is a very important point. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that actually when we studied the Ishavasam principle, that actually this if we follow this Ishavasam principle, then that is actual solution to all the actually these wars and crimes that is currently happening in the world, and it will lead to the actual permanent peace. So one has to actually study this and understand and actually stop fighting, try to actually claim what is actually belong to the God. And also, here is mentioned that actually even in the university, what we study, the various nations are actually they spend a lot of energy and effort tried to create maybe some kind of disaster bombs or some weapons of mass destruction, right? So that is happening all over the world. Actually, I think in the further in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that, or here it is actually mentioned uh, in the next paragraph, that actually more than 50% of nations' energy is devoted to defensive measures, right? So yes, we also see this actually. The biggest budget. Actually, United States have biggest budget for their defense department. India is not very far behind. I think we are fourth in a line that we spend actually the amount of money on actually try to acquire various weapons or try to actually create defense mechanisms. Yes, we understand that is needed because if you do not have your own weapons, other nations will come and try to dominate you. So but actually it will not end anywhere, so that will lead to the different struggles, and nations will fight with each other and people will die. So that is actually the reality that we live in. But if you understand the knowledge given in these actually scriptures, and if we accept this Ishawasam principle, and if you live according to that, and try not to actually grab other people's quota, then all these actually struggles will be they will become nullified, you know, and everybody can live in peace. But yeah, Srila Prabhupada has said this point many times. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph.
There are innumerable suns and innumerable planetary systems also. And as infinitesimal parts and parcels of the Supreme, we small creatures are trying to dominate these unlimited planets. Thus, we take repeated birth and death and are generally frustrated by old age and disease. The span of human life is scheduled for about 100 years, although it is gradually decreasing to 20 or 30 years. Thanks to the culture of nations, befooled men have created their own nations within these planets in order to grasp sense enjoyment more effectively for these few years. Such foolish people draw up various plans to render national demarcations perfect, a task that is totally impossible. Yet, for this purpose, each and every nation has become a source of anxiety for others. More than 50% of a nation's energy is devoted to defense measures and thus spoiled. No one cares for the cultivation of real knowledge, yet people are falsely proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge.
Yes. So we already discussed this point, right? So yes, there is no count to the number of the planets and the actually galaxies that we see in this material sky. And still, on this actually earthly planets, even we are very tiny, we still try to dominate, what we are actually given by the God here. And we have created various nations. We have the borders between each nation, and we always fight because no one is actually satisfied with what they got. They try to grab, more and more. So yeah, I won't mention any names because everyone has their own opinions, what is currently happening in this world. But you see that actually there are some nations who are very rich and actually very powerful, so they take advantage and try to actually dominate other nations for their own gains. And we see this everywhere. There is no actually rocket science to understand this, and everybody thinks they are right. That's a problem, because there are actually freedom fighters, and some people call them a terrorist, and there are terrorists, and some people think they are freedom fighters. So this is going on for many many years, right? There are struggles everywhere, in the name of religion, in the name of actually nationalism. They try to actually grab other countries' resources. So this is all about the greed, right? It's the basic comes to the basic principle that we are not satisfied with what we have. We want more and more, and to get more and more, then actually we waste a lot of time. Actually, we invest into the things, try to develop the weapons and try to develop some kind of system by which we can actually uh, extort other people or other nations. So doing all this, everyone is becoming happy, because it's not like that. It's some people, some nation is taking advantage of other, and they are becoming happier. That's not the case. So everyone suffers. So that is actually ultimate actually conclusion. We become a source of anxiety, and that is nothing but ahimsa. So sorry, himsa. So we are actually causing a lot of trouble to other living entities. So Srila Prabhupada says that no one cares for the cultivation of real knowledge, yet people are fastly proud of being advanced in both material and spiritual knowledge. So yeah, we see that as well. That actually there are so many people that pose themselves to be religionist again. We actually discussed this point last week as well. They actually do religious activities in the public to just show them they are actually religious. But there are always hidden agendas, they try to actually achieve, and they're very proud of what they do. Okay. Is there any? Okay, I think we discussed everything there. Yeah. Let's go to the next paragraph.
Mhm. Sri Isopanishad warns us of this faulty type of education, and the Bhagavad Gita gives instructions as to the development of the mind. This mantra states that the instructions of Vidya, knowledge, must be acquired from a Dheer. A Dheer is one who is not disturbed by material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor laments for anything. Adhir realizes that the material body and mind he has acquired by chance through material association are but foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of a bad bargain.
Okay, maybe we'll continue on the next paragraph as well, Mataji.
The material body and mind are bad bargains for the spiritual living entity. The living entity has actual functions in the living spiritual world, but this material world is dead. As long as the living spiritual sparks manipulate the dead lumps of matter, the dead world appears to be a living world. Actually, it is the living souls, the parts and parcels of the supreme living being, who move the world. The Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing them from superior authorities and have realized this knowledge by following the regulative principles.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. So here is very, very important point. Actually, Srila Prabhupada mentions that actually the knowledge Vidya must be acquired from a dheer person. So let's try to understand what a dheer person means. We have also studied this when we studied the nectar of instruction. There is a first actually verse, Vacho Vegam. So there it is mentioned, Dhiras Tratrana Muhyati. So Dhira person is called a Goswami there. So and the meaning of Goswami is actually one who has actually conquered all his senses. So that is one definition of Dhir. Okay, let me pull out that verse. So quick reference. Is it? Hmm, okay. So वाचो वेगं मनसः क्रोधवेगं जिह्वा वेगम् उदरूपस्थवेगम् एतान् वेगान् यो विषयेत धीरः सर्वामपि माम पृथ्वीं स शिष्यात्. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, the urges of tongue, belly, and genital is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So, Dhiraha is also, that word is mentioned there, and the translation is a sober person. So, let's understand actually, Srila Prabhupada is talking here is that knowledge must be obtained from a Dhira person. So, Dhira person is one, is actually called Goswami, who has actually conquered all his senses, one who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, one who can actually control his anger, and one who can control the urges of his tongue, belly, and genitals. So basically, the Goswamis, they have actually controlled their senses by engaging them in the service of Krishna. So that person is called Dhir. In Bhagavad Gita also, there are many references, but one that actually is important one in this context is Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavvanam jara तथा देहांतर प्राप्तिर धीरस तत्र न मुह्यति. So धीरस तत्र न मुह्यति. So धीर is also mentioned there. So we see all the changes in our body, right? We actually, when we born, we are baby, then we become, actually we grow. We become toddler, then we become teenager, then we become adult, and slowly, as we progress, we also become an old man. So we always see all these changes in every one of us. But Dhira person is one who's not bewildered by all this change because he understands that body is changing, but there is a spirit soul, and he's that spirit soul. So there is no change in the spirit soul. Spirit soul is always young. So one who understands this, and Srila Prabhupada actually mentioned, there's one definition he given where he says that dhir person is that person who understand who he is, that he is a spirit soul, and he understand who God is, and he understand the relationship between God and that actually soul, and who act according to that relationship. So that person is called dhir. So actual meaning, even if we look at the different definition, is the meaning is the similar. That actually, if you have to actually serve Krishna, then actually by serving Krishna, your senses get purified. Uh, and once they are purified, uh, your mind do not concoct. And as soon as mind stop concocting, then it's very easy to control all your senses, and you always engage them in service of the Lord, and they develop the actually taste for spiritual service, and their attachment to the material things, slowly actually they actually it's reduce, and you're no longer interested in materialistic activities. So you ultimately transform into the Goswami, and when you actually follow this instruction given in Bhagavad Gita. So that person is called a dhira person. And Srila Prabhupada says that in this verse what we're studying now, Shishu mantra 10, it is mentioned that, here we go, just a minute. Iti Shushruma Dhirana. So Srila Prabhupada actually traced on the point on this word Shushruma, I heard. So Srila Prabhupada says that actually the knowledge, the spiritual knowledge is heard, and it is heard from a superior source, that is a Dhira person, that's a spiritual master. And that is a way spiritual knowledge is actually is given in the actually Guru Shishya Parampara, the line of disciplic succession. So that is the actually the Vedic way. We hear the knowledge from a superior authority, acharyas, and we accept it and we pass the knowledge to the disciples without actually adding anything from our mind, without actually contaminating that knowledge. So this is actually the system of Guru Shishya disciple, the Guru Shishya Parampara. So knowledge is actually passed on. Actually, as I mentioned here, it is always a shruti. It is heard. But in today's world, Srila Prabhupada says that actually we try to experiment. You know, we read here, we read there, we do our own research, we concoct, we speculate. But that the conclusion we get to, the knowledge that we obtain in that way, is not a perfect knowledge, because we are not perfect. We are not actually, we have limited intelligence, and our senses are also limited, and we are bound to make mistakes. So Srila Prabhupada says that we are not purn, we are apurn. We are actually incomplete. So by experimental knowledge and speculation, the result that we'll get is also imperfect. So if you want to actually obtain the real knowledge, Vedic way is the actually only solution. The Shruti, we hear from a authorized source, superior source. So here it mentioned iti shushruma dhirana. One must hear from a dhir person. That is very, very important. And when you do that, then you obtain the real knowledge. Okay, let's get to the that paragraph where Srila has mentioned that, yes, that dhir is one who is not disturbed by material illusion. No one can be undisturbed unless he is perfectly spiritually realized, at which time one neither hankers nor lament for anything. So that is very true. That in present condition, that we are not actually purified, we are contaminated condition. Then we are actually always disturbed because our mind is always concocting. Our senses are actually running after their sense objects. So we are always disturbed. But when we actually follow this instruction given in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and when we implement them sincerely, then we can able to slowly purify our senses, and we are able to control our senses, and that's how we become a dhir. And here say Dhiras have come to know all these facts by hearing from a superior authorities. No? We discussed that point. And here it is mentioned that, yeah, to follow the regulative principle, one must take the shelter of born by spiritual master. The transcendental measures and regulative principle come down from spiritual master to disciple. So that is a Guru Shish Parampara. Such knowledge does not come in a hazardous way of nescient education, right? So we discuss how the today's education system is actually working. So we ask students to go and do the research, find out yourself, and we search, we use Google and blah blah blah. But actually, the knowledge we're getting in that way is not perfect. Even if we do a lot of experimentation, even you are very very clever, still because your senses are not perfect, the actually conclusions that we reach, the results that we obtain is always going to be imperfect. So that is a point that we must we understand. And finally, the point here mentioned is the perfect disciple must be like Arjuna, and the spiritual master must be as good as Lord Himself. So Arjuna, he actually listened to from Lord Krishna very submissively, and he became a dheer. So that is actually a very important point. And this process of learning vidya from a dheer person who is undisturbed. So there's one more point. The dheer realizes that material bond in mind he has acquired by chance through a material association are but of foreign elements. Therefore, he simply makes the best use of a bad bargain. So, best use of bad bargain. So, this is also important point. Srila Prabhupada mentions that the bad bargain, actually this material body is called a bad bargain. And why it is called bad bargain? Because as soon as we have this material body, it comes with all the miseries with it. So birth, death, old age, and disease. As soon as the birth is there, death is there. We become old, we become diseased. So we have to go through all these miseries, with this body. So that's why this material body is called a bad bargain. But how to make a actually best use of bad bargain? To engage this body in the service of the Lord. And Krishna gives us this body. So we engage this body in service of a Krishna. And that's how we purify this body. So once you are actually engaged in Krishna's service, your body is also spiritualized. And your senses are actually spiritualized. They become a spiritual senses. And you are actually take a lot of pleasure in serving Krishna. And that's how you become happy. So that is how one has to actually make the best use of a bad bargain. Okay. I think we covered all the points there. Just the last paragraph left. I think we will quickly go through that. Mataji. Hare Krishna Devansh Mataji.
Yes, Krishna Maharaj. I'm able
Yes.
to see the screen actually.
Hare Krishna.
Uh, I'm unable to see the screen, Prabhuji.
Oh, sorry. Let me check. Okay, this unshared. Sorry, that's my mistake. Okay, last paragraph. Adhira.
Yes. An adhi, one who has not undergone the training of adhi, cannot be an instructive leader. Modern politicians who pose themselves as dhiras are actually adhiras, and one cannot expect perfect knowledge from them. They are simply busy seeing to their own remuneration in dollars and cents. How then can they lead the mass of people to the right path of self realization? Thus, one must hear submissively from a dhir in order to attain actual education.
Yes, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So Srila Prabhupada conclude this actually purport with the last point. It is Adhir. So Adhir cannot become an instructive leader. And the reason is given there because he has not undergone the training of Adhir. So Adhiras, they actually do not go through this training. So starting with the actually, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that celibate life. So we have to follow the rules and regulation of celibate life and so on. But we studied this how to become a dhir. When we study nectar of instruction, all the training is given there, right? So starting from Vacho Vegam, then Atyahara Prayashash. So all these instruction, these are the actually do's and don'ts of a devotional service. So if we implement those instructions perfectly given in nectar of instruction, that will is a very good start to become a dhira person. Because it all talks about how to control the senses, how to actually what things are actually good for my devotional service, what are not good for my devotional service. So once we know them and once we follow this instruction, so that is a training for one to become a dhir person. And Bhagavad Gita, as Ambrish Prabhu said many times, that Bhagavad Gita teaches only one thing: how to change one's own behavior, right? So actually, to bring positive change in our behavior, to become a human first, and once we become a human, then we try to become a devotee by engaging ourselves in Krishna service. So basically, we are training ourselves first to actually spiritualize our senses and try to control our senses by engaging them in Krishna service. Srila Prabhupada made this point very, very clear that we cannot control our senses artificially, you know, by actually austerity and artificial means. We can do it for a certain extent, but we're bound to fail at the end. So actually, senses they will always require some actually degree of gratification. And Srila Prabhupada said we must give them that gratification. But best way is to actually engage them in Krishna service. You like to eat nice food, then actually you actually accept prasadam, which is offered to Krishna first. So that way, actually, you are actually by having prasad actually helping is actually helping you to become a devotee anyway, and your senses are also gratified at the same time, and they're actually becoming purified at the same time. So if you follow the actually formula given by Srila Prabhupada, how to become a good devotee, then that will actually lead you to become a dhir person. But here, actually, modern politicians, they are not dhir, they are adhiras, They're not undergone this training, neither they try to implement, even they have undergone this training. So their senses are uncontrolled. So that's why they are not actually purn, they are not complete. They are apurn. Their senses are imperfect. So if they are imperfect, how they can actually lead a mass of people to a perfect conclusion? So it's not possible. Srila Prabhupada actually make this very important point that you cannot expect a perfect knowledge from them. If you're looking for a perfect knowledge, you approach a dhir person, that is bona fide spiritual master. And we actually submissively actually serve him and submissively hear his instruction. So that's actually way to obtain a perfect knowledge from a dhir person. So because the politicians, they're always actually interested in their own agendas and motives. They want to actually achieve what they want to achieve. They do not really care for actually spiritual well-being of a actually society or nation, whatever they're leading. So actually means most of the even materialistic people know that they do not believe politicians now. So it's very, very clear anyway. So yeah, so Srila Prabhupada says that one must hear submissively from a dhir in order to attain an actual education. So that is a vidya. Okay. So these 2 points are very clearly discussed here. What is vidya? What is avidya? And actually how to actually achieve a perfect knowledge and from whom, that we actually discuss here, and things that we need to avoid, actually the politicians and all that we have to actually be very, very mindful about as well. We should not be get misguided. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we conclude this mantra here. So if you have any questions, any burning questions, you can ask now. Otherwise, you have the opportunity to post any questions into our intermediate group. And once we have that, then I will discuss with His Grace Ambrish Prabhu, and we can have another session if that is required. Uh, any questions, Mataji? Soumya Mataji? Parth Prabhuji? Okay. If there are no questions, but yeah, think over it, what we studied. Because some of you actually missed the last class. So please actually go and read the purport And if you still have any questions, then actually you can post those questions in our group, and we will then actually organize another session there if that is required. Okay. Jai Shila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Radha Giridhari Bhagwan ki jai, Shila Gurudev ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Amrish Prabhu. Think we have just only 1 minute left, so probably we can just continue.
So you can just switch off the share.
Share? Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. So